originally going to have a moderator who was going to talk about a bunch of stuff that was really fascinating, but instead, we're not going to do that. So it's going to be way less fascinating. And I was told that you guys might have questions and that there's a mic here and maybe a mic on the other side, or is there just one mic? You can see this is extremely well put together. Anyone know the answer to that? One mic. No waiting. Does anybody have a question? I mean, somebody advised me backstage in the glamorous green room that I could just have a little opening remarks and tell some stories, which I didn't put together, so... Oh, you do have questions.
I do have a question.
All right.
First question is, what's today's secret word?
What's today's secret word? I see that you guys are all very secret word starved. The secret word today is a combination of words. It's New York. Let's see. I have this funny experience at Comic-Cons where I'm always anxious about seeing somebody in particular. Like, I go on the website and look and see who's going to be there, and then I get super anxious, and I'm like, I'm never going to find so-and-so. And two people I really wanted to see, this is what I was talking about how fascinating this is going to be. I really wanted to see Anika Nani Rose, who turned out to be 3 seats away from me. She was just on the other side of the Little Mermaid, Jodie Benson's voice. And so I got to see her today, and I was most anxious to see my really great friend, the late Luke Perry's son, who is becoming such a huge rising star in the wrestling field. He's known as Jungle Boy. You probably already all know that. They made their debut last night on the new TNT show that beat everything and was like in the news today. And so I knew they were going to be here for this really short little block of time, and I was like, I'll never find them, How am I going to find them? And literally on the way, walking over here, actually riding over here in a golf cart, I looked over and he was standing right next to me. And so I got to see him, and it was super exciting, and I just couldn't help but think of like how proud his dad would be of him right now. I mean, his dad lived long enough to see him really starting to blossom and have this amazing career, but today would have been like a real highlight. So anyway, I love that story. Do you have another question?
Yes, the last one. When you were doing Pee-wee's Playhouse, what was the decision to not use the bike and turn it into a scooter?
Say that again?
When you were doing Pee-wee's Playhouse, what was the decision to get rid of the bike and go into a little scooter?
Well, the bike was actually owned by Warner Brothers. It was all part of like Pee-wee's Big Adventure, copyright, trademark, whatever. And so there was never a possibility that, oh, why don't you take a picture of the last one? So it was never really an option, and plus at the time we did Pee-wee's Playhouse. The movie had just happened the year before, and I was really like looking to try to shake it up and do something different. And I never actually, until this very minute when you asked me that question, thought about like having a bike be part of it. It was always a scooter. And I mean, it was more thought out a few years ago when I was writing the Netflix third Pee-wee movie, Pee-wee's Big Holiday. I was fishing for that. I did give it a lot more thought, like, now what's going to be the transportation here, and how, how are we going to do something different from a scooter or a bicycle? So we came up with like a toy car. And the toy car was, I had met somebody either on Facebook, I think Facebook, I want to say MySpace, but I'm just kidding. I was never on MySpace, but I think early Facebook, somebody contacted me on my Pee-wee page and said, and showed me some pictures that they were part of some kind of a company that made those little miniature cars, and they were based on a real miniature car, a whole chain of things that were, I think back in the 1950s, they gave those little miniature cars out to car dealers, and they were like miniatures of real cars that the dealers were selling. And so, this is one of those stories that is a perfect example of where I love that story is going to be the punchline, because you just get to a point in a story like this very moment where you realize like, oh, there's no ending. So this is the time when you just wait a beat at the end and just say, I love that.
Thank you so much.
I love that you made cameos in a bunch of Tim Burton's movies. Do you have any favorite moments?
I wish I could understand what you're saying, sorry.
Do you have any favorite moments from working with Tim Burton after, like with the smaller cameos later?
What was the end of it?
With the cameos.
Back away from the mic just a tiny
You told me to
bit.
read it as far as possible.
Giving you professional pointers on time. It's either mic work or my hearing, or a combination. What were my favorite, do I have a favorite moment?
Working with Tim Burton.
Tim Burton.
Yeah.
And then you had a whole other sentence.
With the cameos that you did in later movies. After Peter.
Cameos in later movies, but a couple words before that. I feel like I need one of those big horns like they used to have a long time ago.
Okay, that's it.
Are you regretting that you came up here? Nice skeleton costume over there. I saw the Joker walk in here too. I don't know where you are. I was speaking to the curtain. I saw you walk in. Joker. What was the question? Just totally kidding. I think we all have it embedded in our brain now. Except for me, I'm not kidding. I was pretending to be kidding. I had so many moments working with Tim Burton on Pee-wee's Big Adventure. I'll tell you a really long story, really slowly right now. When that script was finished, we turned it into Warner Brothers. Some of you may know this story already. There are many versions of this story. I'm going to give you the truthful version where I get all the credit in the story. The studio asked, when the script was finished, we submitted the script to Warner Brothers, and before the internet, I bought a book called Directors, and it had every working director at the time, and I wrote a list down, and just went through this book, and any director who had even like a fraction of a half of a scene that I liked in a movie, I put their name on this list. So I turned a list in of about 150 or 200 directors to Warner Brothers. And I went on a vacation, took a little bit of time off from writing the movie, and came back, and Warner Brothers had a list of one per, like they came back and said, it's this guy. And it was somebody who I thought, you know, I actually said, you know, I just worked like about 10 years to get to the point where I'm sitting in Warner Brothers' office with the president of Warner Brothers Studios, 2 presidents, and I have the opportunity to make a movie, and that's like the wrong director. That's not the right director. And I was completely inspired. This is slightly name dropper and may seem incredulous, but it's true. And I don't think he knows to this day that he was such a strong inspiration, and that Tim Burton would even know that this is how he wound up directing Pee-wee's Big Adventure. I was at the time completely inspired by Sylvester Stallone. I'm not kidding. I mean, a lot of you know this story, maybe some of you don't know this story. Sylvester Stallone, when he made Rocky, very, very famously said no to every single opportunity he had to make that movie that didn't include him starring in the movie. Every major action star and male star in Hollywood at the time Rocky was made wanted to play Rocky. That script was never in question. Everybody wanted to make that movie, but no one wanted to make it with an unknown person named Sylvester Stallone. Nobody. And Sylvester Stallone, was just, I don't know how, I've never really talked to him about, during our many conversations we have had, I never really have gone how did you have I don't know what's the word, yeah, I do know what the word is. I mean, how he had the nerve to or the confidence to actually be like, I wish I could do a great Sylvester Stallone. Insert great Sylvester Stallone impression right here. Adrian. Of how he had the confidence to just go no, I'm not making the thing that could change my entire life and career unless you let me star in it. And so that was a very famous story within show business at the time that I was making Pee-wee's Big Adventure, or just before we made Pee-wee's Big Adventure. And I was so inspired by that, and I'm so like Sylvester Stallone in so many ways that I honestly just felt I'm sorry, no. I sat in this guy's office and they said, it's this guy and we'll greenlight the film, and I went, sorry, no, that's not the right guy. And I walked out of I didn't walk out, I left the meeting, and I had two managers at the time who also co-produced the movie, and they sat me down right outside this guy's office and went, are you out of your mind? Let me just explain how show business works. These heads of movie studios, they don't stay in place very long. They change all the time. And if you say yes now to this guy directing your movie, you have a greenlit movie and you can make the movie. We'll start pre-production tomorrow. And I thought, well, no, it's just wrong. I love this script. I have a lot of confidence in this character and in my movie, and I don't want to do it like that. And ironically, the two guys who were the head of the studio had the longest reign of anybody in the movie studio. They were there for 20 plus years, the same people. And somehow, I don't really remember the bridge in between that moment and when they actually said to me, you can have 1 week to find somebody else. And it was almost like you'll never find somebody that we're gonna, they said to me, it's the 3 A's, approvable, affordable, and available. And so I thought, okay, great. I didn't personally know a single director in Hollywood. And they had already nixed 150 or 200 names that were on my list. So I went out that night, and I was in a comedy group at the time called the Groundlings. And I went to a party that was a lot of groundlings and a lot of people that were, it was a party put on by this woman whose restaurant I worked in the kitchen of at the time. And I went up to every single person at this party and went do you know a director for a movie? And a girl that I know, whose name was Mary Edith Burrell, who was a performer and a writer, she was a character that I should know the name of on Seinfeld. I mean, a very minor character, but she was on multiple appearances on Seinfeld as this character. And I had known her, she'd been in the Groundlings a long time, and she turned around to me and she went, oh my God, oh Paul, I know exactly who it is. His name's Tim Burton. You've got to like look at him. He's phenomenal. Oh my God, Paul. And I could just see her. The more she was thinking about it, the more she was going, this is the guy. Like, you got to talk to this guy. And then she said to me, Paul, Shelley just worked with him. Shelley Duvall was in Frankenweenie. And my friend Mary Edith had just seen Frankenweenie. We're going to take a 30-minute break and then another hour of this story. The last 40 people could sit down there for the questions. So it's just going to be this one question. I'm going to riff on this for the next 3.5 hours, till 8:30. So, where was I? Shelley Duvall, who, by the way, this is a little bit of a digression, but I just was on a video call with Shelley Duvall like a month ago. Shelley Duvall is someone who virtually disappeared from Hollywood. Some of you may know. And I've always had such a soft spot and admired Shelley Duvall so much, particularly because she was she was involved in this decision with Tim Burton. But also, the first time I ever was hired to do something where it was starring Paul Reubens was Shelley Duvall's Fairy Tale Theater, Pinocchio. We became friends, and I just loved everything about Shelley Duvall. And she left Hollywood the day after we had our big earthquake in the 90s. She was like, I'm out of here, and moved to Texas and literally disappeared. And I just got word like about 2 months ago that she was working with somebody who contacted me and said, Shelley's been talking about you and she would love to talk to you. And we got on a video call on her birthday. I'm like a birthday freak, and so I always try to contact my friends and stuff on their birthday. And for years, it's come up in my calendar with Shelley's birthday, and I never knew how to contact her. And this year, on her birthday, I was lucky enough to get on a video call. It had been since whenever that earthquake was, 94, the Northridge quake. I think somebody could look it up on there. It's not a fail. When is it? 94. Oh, bingo. Who was right on that? I know my earthquake history. 1994. And I mentioned she left town. Look at the people heading for the door right now. I thought this fellow was going to be... at any rate, she got on this video call with me and was like, this is my first video call ever. And I was like, wow, that's so great. And we talked for an hour, and I'm back in touch with Shelley Duvall. That's the end. So back to me. My friend said to me, oh my God, you know Shelley, call Shelley Duvall. And ask Shelley about Tim Burton. So I called Shelley Duvall and I said, Shelley, Mary Edith told me you're in a movie that was directed by somebody named Tim Burton, and I'm looking for a director for my Pee-wee movie. And Shelley did the same thing on the phone that this girl had done at the party. She went, oh my God, Paul. Oh my God, what, oh, wow, he's so perfect, he's the exact person. So 2 people I really admired had like flipped out, and I felt both of these people knew me and knew the character and knew enough to go, that their recommendation or their vibe that it was like the right person was something I should follow. So the next day, I arranged with my manager to screen Frankenweenie. And I literally watched about the first 30 seconds or a minute of Frankenweenie, the first 3 shots. It got to, it's been a while since I saw Frankenweenie, but I remember seeing a detail in like the third cut in the movie of some wallpaper in the background and going, wow, this guy has such an eye and this is so specific and art directed and stylistic. It was just so full of style, which at the time, the Warner Brothers was kind of approaching my movie like, what do you need style for? Or like, what do you know, I remember when we hired an art director a little bit later on in the story, when we hired an art director, they were like, what do you need art direction for? It's a comedy. And I was like, man, you don't get this. Like, this is really, you know, why I wanted Tim Burton. And I screened Frankenweenie. After about the first minute of it, I thought, this is the guy. This guy, like, really is, like, perfect in so many ways. And we went back to Warner Brothers and we said, we got it, Tim Burton. And they looked at us and went, Tim will never do this movie, never. We've sent him probably 8 projects already, and he's turned every single one of them down. He won't even read your script. And my manager, I don't know how this happened to this day, but my manager somehow got the script to Tim within a day or two of that meeting, and to Warner Brothers' incredible shock and surprise, Tim read the script right away and agreed to do the movie, called Warner Brothers and went, I'll do it. This is my feature debut. I'll do it. And that's what happened. As about a 40-minute postscript to that, to really answer your question, once Tim got on the movie, Tim was 27 years old. I was older than him when I made the movie. I was, I think, 32 maybe. Please don't try to do the math. This is like many years later. Oh my God. I'll tell you next. Tim was 27 years old. My friends would come to the set and be like, who's the director? And I'd point out Tim, who like looked like he was 16 and had like the same famous bad hair that he has to this day. He had that like really extreme version of it. And I'd go, that's the director over there, and people would be like, oh, come on, who's the really the director? And he was so sharp and so on it, and so, I mean, there were so many elements to that, making that movie that were magic, that were like people going, you know, this is just, I don't know, what's the term, when things just like, you know, merge and are meant to be, kismet kind of thing, where we were so simpatico and so kind of like, could speak in shorthand after barely knowing each other. You know, we just were in the same world, we liked the same things. There were so many things that were attributed or that seemed like Tim Burton-esque kind of things in that script that are really things that were on the page, that were written in the script. That it was just like an incredible experience. And I don't have that many specific memories of like, oh, this was my favorite moment of working with Tim, or the weirdest moment, or the most exotic moment, or any of those kind of things. It was literally, it was an extremely low budget movie. It was made for, I think, $6.5 million, which at that time was like very, very low budget. And people were pretty, the studio had so little faith in him, in a way, that they assigned like us, they pushed him to have a lot of staff on the movie that were quote unquote old timers. Like the cinematographer was somebody who had done 1 million movies, and that's what the studio or money people, a lot of times will take a new director or somebody who they consider green, and they will put them with a really seasoned cinematographer as sort of insurance on some level. And so Tim worked with a man named Victor Kemper, I think was his name, who was very seasoned and very kind of an old-timer cinematographer, and but there were so many moments in that movie that where it's not show-offy at all in style, but it's stylistic, like all the way through it. I think the thing that I think of the very most in that movie is the reveal of the dinosaurs. And when we get to the dinosaur sequence, where he had a truck. It's the end of the large mark sequence. And the truck pulls, I go like, I'll get out here, and I jump out of the truck, and the truck pulls away and it wipes the frame. I mean, it just pulls the frame, and when it pulls away, it reveals those dinosaurs. And when I saw that, I almost burst into tears. I almost am right now. It was just so beautiful and so what I had hoped for in somebody putting that movie together, that it was just incredible. And so I hope that answers your question. Question number 2. Oh, we're out of time?
I was so happy recently to see your Buffy character again on What We Do in the Shadows.
Oh, yeah.
Were you a fan of Taika Waititi, or did you, like, how did that happen?
How did that happen? You know, I got a call from, in show business we have agents. And my agent called me up and said, really interesting job. They want you to repeat your character from Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And it's a director named Taika Waititi, who is somebody I really feel like it would be great for you to work with and meet and know, and for him to get to know you. And you know, the more they were telling me about it, the more like excited I got about it, until they got to like, it was on Oscar Sunday, which in Hollywood is like Christmas. I mean, it's like a holiday, the Oscars. I mean, not that I think it should be, but it is. It's really like a crazy, like everything stops in show business, and kind of in business. It's a good time to go to a restaurant. Same as Christmas, you know, where lots of stuff's closed and everything's empty. It's like that. I got so upset, and I immediately thought like, oh, okay, no, I don't care what it is, sorry. I didn't know the show, I didn't know the movie, and so I basically was like, oh, I don't think so. I'm not on Oscar Sunday. Not because I was going to the Oscars. I was just the opposite of that. I'm not proud to admit this, but I used to like to, I still do this. I like to watch the Oscars from a standpoint of being like angry and bitter. And just watch them be like, oh, this is another thing I hate about show business. Overall. And so, Joker, I see you. Easily distractible, I told you that before. What was your question again? So, I didn't really want to do it, and then they started spouting off who the people were going to be. At that time, I don't think he made it into the show, but the first name they said was Alexander Skarsgård, who I thought, oh, that sounds interesting. And then they said Danny Trejo. You guys know the story already. Danny Trejo, who I love, and who? I don't know who that is. Don't tell him though. No, the third name was Tilda Swinton. So I was like, oh my God. And I got really angry actually at myself because I knew it was something I had to do, and I was going to have to give up watching the Oscars in my living room going like. I did that several hours afterwards when I taped it and got to see it. It was even better actually because I could stop it and run it back, you know, because they had these things called DVRs. And anyway, that's what happened. I got a call to do it, and they added Wesley Snipes and a couple of other people, Rachel. Thank you. And oh, she's right back there. Hey, maybe look. And we did it on Oscar Sunday. They called me about an hour before I was supposed to leave my house. I'm like, could you like leave right now instead of in an hour? Because Tilda Swinton would love to meet you. And I thought, oh my God, could I? So I went and got to hang out with Tilda Swinton. We all did those parts separate, and they put us all into a room together, so none of us were together when we shot it. And we didn't have to learn any dialogue, which was great. They just stood off camera and went, say this, or try this, or how about this? And we would just repeat the lines that they said, or improvise something, and then they picked the best of what they liked and put it all together. And Danny Trejo, I had only met one time before that, and I was at a recording session for, oh, this would be such a great name to drop if I could think of what it was. It was a really like crazy cartoon recording session, and I got to it early, and Danny Trejo was just finishing, and he was screaming something out, and he was in some crazy cartoon voice, and the director said, that was great, I'd like to go one more time, and this time, could you like, at this point, and he said the line, at this word, stop and spit a couple of teeth out, and then do the rest of the line, and I thought, oh my God, like, how would you do that? And Danny Trejo, like, did that, exactly, he like, did the same line that I just heard, and then spit out like 3 teeth, and then went on with the thing. And I was like, oh my God, this guy's the greatest voice person ever. I mean, I really thought that. And again, this is one of those, like, I'm crazy about that story. But that's the answer. And, I gotta tell you one other thing about that. They did not, well, 6 or 8 more things about that. They would not let us tell anybody that it was happening. Like, we couldn't do on social media, nothing, because they wanted it to be a secret, which turned out to be great, because, you know, nobody knew about it. So it was like a big shock to everyone. And the other thing I forgot to mention about it is that as soon as I agreed to do it, I watched the movie of What We Do in the Shadows, which I was just so blown away by it. And the co-writer and co-director, co-creator of that movie and series, also the FX version of it, was Jermaine Clement from Flight of the Conchords, which I didn't even realize that I loved that so much until I saw him and realized I'd seen so many episodes of that show. It was a whole world I knew nothing about, as is the case with many things now. But it was like an amazing experience. I was really happy I did it. And one other like little known fact about it, they said to me, listen, if you have the wig from Buffy, you could bring that. And I thought, that movie was made in 1992. Who's got the wig? And by the way, you're not, I mean, those of you not in show business, they're not like, Mr. Reubens, wait, you forgot the wig. They never give you a handmade wig, like they cost thousands of dollars. They just don't, ever. So, cut to me, I'm like known as a little bit of a hoarder. I went to my closet, I pulled the wig out. And I wore the original wig from Buffy, and it was like right there, exactly where I knew where it was. It was labeled, and threw it on and went out there. Yes, sir.
I'm sorry you were in season 6 of The Blacklist.
You're sorry, what?
I'm sorry you weren't in the latest season of The Blacklist.
Oh, me too. This isn't a Blacklist story, actually. This is a Gotham story. But the Blacklist is similar in that, like, both of those shows, the costumer, the costume designer, or the wardrobe person, one or the other, it was the costumes department, were the people who, like, told me I was dying in the series. And both times I was like, wait, what? They would go, this is what you're wearing in your death scene, and I'd be like, what? And they would turn around and they'd go like, oh my God, please don't tell anybody that I told you that. I'm in so much trouble. And I mean, how do you like not tell somebody like, oh man, I just found out this is gonna be our last time together, you know, that kind of thing. It was like horrible because both of those shows I loved working on. And the Blacklist I didn't want to do because it was like bloody and gory, and I know this is going to go over like a lead balloon in here, but I am like not a gore or scary movie person at all. I'm only in 2 scary movies, and both of those I barely wanted to. I mean, Buffy was a movie that I thought like, oh, there's blood in this. And I'm in a movie, a very obscure movie by my friend David Arquette called The Tripper, that I actually get sawed in half at the end of the movie. If you haven't seen it, I mean, it's something to contemplate. I didn't want to do that either. And so when the Blacklist came along, I read it and I was like, I don't know, this is like bloody. And they went, oh, well, rewrite it. Like, oh, I love that idea. You're like a killer who's like, you know, gets sick with blood. And so that's sort of how that character came about, where I would like shoot somebody or stab somebody or something bloody would happen, and I'd be like, I feel like pain. And I had a guy that came and put a chair behind me and I would sit down. It was really a lot of fun. That's not your question though, right?
So you've done the movies, you've done the specials, the Christmas specials and all that.
This is the second question? It's only one question each. No, you asked me something about the Blacklist.
No, I said sorry you weren't in it.
Oh, you're sorry I wasn't in it. You and me both. Which reminds me of another a really long story. No, I just wanted to tell you one. I'll tell you the really quick, like 30-minute version. Which is, when I was working on Gotham, the same thing happened to me. I was like, oh my God, my new family, I love this. And I thought I was going to be working with my friend Carol Kane on Gotham, who played Robin Lord Taylor's mother. And she called me up. I'm not in New York very often. You guys have like minds like steel traps. So I was in town and I called Carol to see if she wanted to have lunch, and she said, oh, I'd love to have lunch, and I'm working with a guy, an actor, who I'd love for you to meet. And so she brought Robin Lord Taylor to our lunch. And over lunch they told me they're going to bring the dad in here, and it would be unbelievable if you wanted to play the dad because you were already the Penguin's father in something. So I thought, wow, this would be really fun to work with Carol, and this kid seems really nice, and I thought, oh, why not? You know, I didn't know the show really, and it was sort of like what we do in the shadows. I went home and watched a couple episodes of Gotham, and it was like, wow, it just blew me away. I just thought it was so incredibly original and great, and more than anything on that show, I loved the actors in it. I just thought that they cast that show so incredibly well. And anyway, I had already done a couple of episodes, and I was just thinking, wow, this is the greatest gig. I get to fly to New York and work for a week and do something really fun. And it was like half of it would be on location somewhere, and the other half would be out at Steiner Studios and on these incredible sets that I have tons of pictures of where they said, please don't take any photos. And I would like take a million photos of like the Bat Cave and all kinds of stuff that was really cool on there. And anyway, the day same thing happened to me as on the Blacklist. I was in like the wardrobe thing one day, and the guy said, "This is what you're gonna be in your death scene." And I was like, "Death scene?" Nobody told me I was dying on it that quick. And so all right, I'll go quicker. I'll tell that story. I'll do the material here. So. Anyway, you seem busy, you guys. Thank you. So I wound up deciding, I'm not going to die. Sorry, this is not like it. So the script was I was supposed to take a sip of some poison wine and then die. And I told Robin ahead of time, like, I'm not going to die on the first day, okay? And he went, all right. So they started filming, and they went action, and I walked over, and I did my lines, and I picked up the glass of poison wine, and I took a sip, and I went, this is delicious. I took another sip, and I was like, and I downed the whole glass, and I got up, and I poured another glass, and I drank that, and I looked over for a second, and the script supervisor was like, what's going on? And the director was all confused, and I just kept thinking to myself, like, this is so weird. Like, nobody gets that I'm just pranking them. And I finally couldn't contain myself anymore, and I felt like I'm gonna crack myself up in a second. And so I just finally went like, okay, I'm sorry, let's go again. And nobody laughed at all. Like, not one person thought that was funny. I thought, this is the funniest thing I've ever done. And nobody laughed. And then I came back a year later, another season, to be a ghost. And when I walked in on the set, a bunch of people on the crew came over and was like, that thing you did last year, and it was like a year later. And then I did the same thing, not as good, but I did a similar thing, where in the first take of being a ghost, the director was like, here's the concept, and it's a hallucination and all this stuff. And I was like listening to it all, because I knew I would do what he said, but not on the first take. On the first take, they said action, and I went, and again, I thought, this is hilarious. So, I'm being signaled that we're getting close to the end. So, is there a burning, anyone have like a burning question here? Yeah. Wait, there's two people at the same time. I'm sorry. You, sir.
Hi, yes. I love everything you do, obviously. I saw you before I took a picture. Wonderful. But the thing that stands out to me the most from my childhood is the Pee-wee's Christmas special.
Oh, yeah.
Amazing cameos in there. And, they're all great, but the one that stands out is the Grace Jones.
Yes!
It's still ingrained in my mind. I'm a little Jewish kid, and I
Mine too.
and I love the Christmas special.
Grace was dating Dolph Lundgren at the time, and so Dolph Lundgren was on the set, and this is a very little known, maybe not even known by anyone but me, and I'm just sharing it with you guys, so please don't tell this to anyone. But that was, she told me that when she was on the airplane, she flew with David Bowie, and she asked him, I'm going to sing The Little Drummer Boy, and he said, use my arrangement. And that was David Bowie's arrangement of The Little Drummer Boy that she sang. I didn't know that until after the show. And as a little bit of an aside again here, I'm going to digress just before we wrap this up, is to tell you that David Bowie, who I completely idolized, asked me twice to open for him on 2 of his tours, both of which times I went like, I'm not an opening act, David, I'm sorry. And again, that was sort of my I mean, in hindsight, I kind of wish I would have. I have very few regrets, and that's the truth. But I do. One of my regrets is that I didn't open for David Bowie. I did take David Bowie to a nightclub one time after I was sitting at a table at the. This is so showbizy, this story, but I was at the Grammys. The only year I ever went to the Grammys. I was sitting at a Grammy after party, and I just was coincidentally sitting next to David Bowie, and I smoked cigarettes at the time, and I reached in my pocket to get a cigarette and noticed that the tuxedo I was wearing that I had borrowed from Warner Brothers because it was the only one that didn't need tailoring, that fit me perfect, and I didn't have any time to tailor it. I didn't notice inside until I was at this after party that I opened the jacket and looked, and it said, made expressly for Frank Sinatra. It was from High Society, and it was black, and it came with a cape. I didn't wear the cape. It had a cape that was lined with white brocade inside of it, and I've seen it in the movie, and I kept it. So close to all of you. I have that in a closet stored along with another stolen item that I have from Michael Jackson. I played Michael Jackson's stunt double in a fake documentary that's never, to my knowledge, never been released. A feature-length fake documentary. I don't know anything. Jeff Goldblum was in it, along with Elizabeth Taylor. I mean, all these people played like Elizabeth Taylor played his housekeeper. I can't remember what Jeff Goldblum played, but it was an all-night shoot, and at the end, in the morning when the sun came up, I had been wearing his black fedora that said Michael Jackson inside of it all night. And it was sitting on, I took it off and put it on the couch in the little trailer that I was in, and the sun came up, and I looked over, and just as I was leaving that hat, I swear that hat was going, take me, take me. And so I was like, I bet he's got like 1,000 of these. And I put it in my bag. He never spoke to me again, so I don't know whether like he was like, oh man, he ripped off my hat, or what happened. What was the original? What? Grace Jones. David Bowie. Let's see, back up. I was at a Grammy party wearing Frank Sinatra's jacket. This is my last thing, I swear I'm almost finished. I said to David Bowie, this is so incredible that I actually got to do this. But I said to David Bowie, you want to get out of here? At a party. And he went, yeah. And I took David Bowie to like what was at that time called an underground nightclub that didn't have a license and was just like a place that was known by all those in the know people like myself. And I walked into a nightclub with David Bowie as my guest, and literally every single person in this club that were all hip, famous, cool people, all were like, oh my God, be waiting. And I really do love that story, I have to say. The last time I saw David was at my Broadway show. He came to see the Broadway show. And we took a picture together, and he said, please don't show this to anyone, and I've never shown it to anyone, and I'm going to show it to you all. No, not really. I just want to say in closing that part of going to these Comic-Cons is so unbelievable because I feel so much love from people, and I get to sit at a table and have people tell me the most amazing, beautiful, touching things. I get so emotional. I'm sure, I'm not that good of an actor, so like, you can tell this is real, I hope. But I get so overwhelmed and so emotional about it that I just feel so incredibly blessed and lucky that people like what I do, and I do it for that reason. I mean, I'm not trying to impress anybody or fit into anything. I just kind of do what I feel like is the right thing to do, and I'm always amazed that people like it and get anything out of it. And I've said this isn't the first time I've said this, but it's very corny in a way, you know, like what I'm saying to you right now. And I think that's something about me that's completely genuine, and that where I feel like I touch people in some way is like just by being corny. I mean, in a real sort of serious way, if that makes any sense at all. So I deeply appreciate it. Thank you.